The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network. You can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Let's talk goalies with Michael Russo. This is the Russo Hockey Show, part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune. Thank you to our producer, Brandon Morton. Thank you to our sponsors, Twill in the Dining Galleria, FixologyRepair.com, Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent, and Bite Squad. Remember, next 2 live shows coming up quick here, November 13th and November 20th, 7 o'clock at Tin Shed in Savage. TinShedMN.com is the best place to check out show times, their menu, their deals, everything else. We appreciate them hosting the shows. We always have a great time out there. If you haven't been to a show, come out and meet everybody. It's a great group. Michael is in San Jose. We're going to kind of make this a pregame podcast, but as with all of our podcasts, we'll talk about a lot of things that are not game related. So if you end up hearing this later in the week, most of the issues will still be relevant. Let's start with the goalies, Michael. I hate using cliched terms like, goalie controversy or whatever. So I'll just let you characterize where this team is with its goalies right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now Dubnyk is struggling, and Alex Stalock is getting 2 starts in a row to start an important 4-game trip. So it's obvious right now the faith that Bruce has in Doobie, but as one of our freelancers for The Athletic tweeted last week, I thought it was really funny, actually. And no offense to Alex at all, but Tony Abbott, one of our freelancers, tweeted something like, when you have a 32-year-old backup as your backup, it's not really a goalie controversy. And that's just the reality, is that eventually Doobie is going to get back into the net. Right now, I talked to Billy Guerin about him this morning, and his whole goal is just to have him continue to work with Bob Mason and try to get his confidence back. He obviously is struggling right now. I'll have the numbers in a story that I'm working on right now. I'm working on a goaltending story on Doobie, and also maybe a potential succession plan for him eventually when his contract is up here right now. And I'm either going to make it my quote-unquote gamer tonight, or it'll appear in The Athletic tomorrow. But I pulled up some numbers during the Anaheim game the other night, and in his first, and I'm probably going to get this completely wrong because I wrote it in my file the other night and haven't gone back in it. But in his first 130 games with the Wild, he gave up 3 or more goals. He gave up 4 goals, so more than 3 goals, something like 9 times. And right now, the one thing that we've seen in the last year, and definitely the start of this season, is a bit of deterioration. And he feels like he feels good in net. He feels like really nothing has changed. That goals are just going in on him right now. That he's got to fine tune some things. But the numbers don't lie, Jim, and his numbers continue to go down here. So they've got to figure it out with him. They've got no choice. I mean, he's their $4.5 million goalie with another year left on his deal. He's still the number 1 goalie, but until he gets his game back on track here, if Alex continues to play well, you've got to continue to roll with him. And so originally, Bruce planned to start Dubnyk tonight here in San Jose, but he didn't like his practice yesterday in Anaheim, Dubnyk's. And then you have Alex coming off a very well-played win the other night in Anaheim. where he made 3 huge saves in that game to keep them in the game. One when they were down 2-0, he makes a save 10 seconds after it became 2-0, and then 2 huge saves in the third period on Ricard Raquel. And then the other thing that he did that game is that he anticipates things going through the crease all the time, where he chuck the pucks out of the way that could be slam dunk goals. So right now, Alex is playing sharp, and he'll get the second straight start here tonight in San Jose.
So you mentioned as your freelancer said, 32-year-old backup goalie. Is there any chance that Stalock is one of those late bloomers that he could be a starter in the NHL, or is he really just a backup and a role player at this point?
I think I like Alex. I love his compete level in net. But just the size that he is, I just don't think that he could just all of a sudden be anointed as the number one here. But I do think that if Dubnyk's going to continue to, struggle, if he's going to give up goals that are backbreaking goals like he did the other night against St. Louis, you got to play Alex more. There's no reason why you wouldn't play Alex more. And so that's just going to have to be the reality. Doobie's going to have to get his game back on track here. You have negative thoughts that start to creep in your head. And that's always the double-edged sword when it comes to struggles for goalies is they hate to talk about it because, the more outside noise, the more articles written about it, all of a sudden it just makes it so much more difficult to get back on track. I talked to Bob Mason a lot about that today and how they're trying to really work with him almost in a private situation and not really talk about this a lot because they don't want they don't want to add the extra pressure that he's already dealing with, knowing that his game is struggling. And look, Devin's not stupid. He's such a proud guy and he sees his numbers. He cannot like it. And if you remember the beginning of the year, that first game in Nashville, he played well. And then he gave up a couple tough goals. But really the next 2 or 3 games, if you look at every goal against, it's hard to blame him on a lot of them. And so what happens is now you don't get the early success. The team struggles out of the gate. They start off 1-8 on the road. And then eventually your game does start to break down. And so that's what he's dealing with now. At first, at the start of the year, it looked to me like there were some tracking puck issues. Now it's losing his edge on plays that are he's either going left or right. Like the 2 goals the other night against St. Louis. I mean, he lost his post on one. It was a balance issue. And then the other one he lost his edge on. Those were 2 goals that needed to be stopped. And so right now he worked really late into the morning skate today with Bob Mason, and the goal now is to get him back on track, and maybe he winds up starting in Arizona on Saturday night. We'll see.
Stalock is listed at 6 feet. Certainly when you stand around him in the locker room, he's not a big, imposing guy. And obviously Dubnyk is a very tall, rangy guy. How big do you have to be to have what's considered ideal size in today's NHL, and when did size become kind of a priority?
Well, it's funny. I mean, when I started covering the league, I mean, I was looking at Guy Bear the other day in the press room in Anaheim, and I mean, tiny. John Van Biesbroek, tiny. Mike Vernon, tiny. And then Mike Richter, small. And these guys succeeded, but it's a different world now. These pucks come at high velocity. They rise on you. There's so much traffic around the net, and you just, if you don't take up a lot of net, it's a big issue. And we saw it the other night with the second goal there. Obviously it's to me it's not a bad goal. That goal against Stalock, he just didn't see it. It came through traffic, but if he's bigger, it probably hits him. So that's the big thing. I'd like to get that tape measure out on Alex Stalock and see if he's really 6 foot. Right. By the way, yeah. I think that right now Alex is playing well. He's a beloved teammate. Not that Devin's not, but So the other night, I mean, you read the quotes from Eric Stahl after the game. It's hard not to read between the lines. They were excited with the goaltending that they got that night and against Anaheim. I'm saying, and so we'll see if it continues here. To me, if Stalock. Bruce's job is to win. I know some fans are like, this is awful. Ride with Dubnyk so they could lose some games here and try to get a top pick. But Bruce's job is to win. And so if Alex has another really quality game in San Jose, it's hard not to continue to roll with Alex for a while and give Devin the time to get back on track. In Anaheim the other day after the game, the next day, so yesterday, They had a practice where Devin was working his butt off in practice, but it just seemed like everything was going in against him, which was alarming to a lot of the coaches. And so, he's just got to continue to work with Bob and try to get his game back on track. All goalies go through this, but again, the numbers don't lie, and I do think that he's slowing down. I just, again, you look at his numbers when he first got to Minnesota. Well, let's not even take that. Let's discount his first couple of years. So his last years with Mike Yeo and John Torchetti. Just take his first 3 years with Bruce Boudreau. His first year with Boudreau, he was the best goalie in the league maybe to March 1st. Okay. His second year with Boudreau, he was one of the best goalies in the league until February 1st. Last year, he was one of the best goalies in the league until Tom Wilson hit him in the head. And this year, he's gotten off to a bad start. So we've slowly but surely seen his game start to struggle here. And that could be a sign of getting old. Or whatever. I mean, look at Jonathan Quick. I mean, Jonathan Quick used to be one of the best goalies in the league. Now you watch him the other night against the Wild, and then I watched him again a couple nights ago when they lost it, and I think it was Toronto. And this guy is a shell of what he used to be, and age catches up to you. It's a position where you've got to be quick and net and alert, and that's the concern, is that this is starting to happen now with Devin.
Absolutely. I have another question or two about.
But I will say this: the good news, and this is what I was talking to Billy Guerin about, and Billy's not actively trying to come up with a succession plan right now, but right now all their goalies in their system are playing really, really well. I mean, Capo Kakinen's gotten off to a really good start in Iowa. Matt Robson looks like a player. He's gotten off to his numbers are incredible in Iowa, but his record's something like 1-1-3, some weird thing, weird record just because of some overtime losses. But his numbers are awesome, and everybody says that this guy's just icy in net, like nothing bothers him. And then Hunter Jones, their junior guy that they drafted this year in the mid rounds in the NHL draft, he's 12-1-1 for his junior team right now. And then Baribeau was sent to Allen just to play because they got Kakinen and Robson in Iowa, and Baribeau's hurt right now. But they've got 4 young goalies in the system that are over here in North America. And the goal here is to be patient with them and see if one of them or two of them could develop into somebody that could be the eventual successor to Devin Dubnyk, where all of a sudden in a year or two, Billy Guerin doesn't have to worry about maybe wasting assets to go and acquire a goaltender. Maybe you could develop one from within.
Interesting. I have one more goalie question before we get to other topics, travel, and a lot of Twitter questions, a lot of good Twitter questions today. Do want to thank Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com, Twill Edina on Instagram, Peter Millar, Crown Shop, Robert Talbot, Hickey Freeman, Barber, Johnny O, Trask, Brax. So many great brands. And every time I walk in there, there's a brand I haven't heard of before that Scott Dayton has found that makes just great, wearable, durable, fantastic stuff. Twill in the Edina Galleria. I'm here with my wife, Stacy. We went to Twill in the Edina Galleria the other day. We saw Scott Dayton, and I bought the nicest sport jacket I've ever owned, the most comfortable pants I've ever owned. They're Brax. A nice pair of loafers that I can wear to the ballpark. I think they're called Tracks. And I bought a bunch of Stenstrom short sleeve shirts to go with my Stenstrom nice dress shirts. And, I used to wear just disposable clothes. Now when I buy something, I buy it at Twill. I know it's going to last me the rest of my life, and it's going to be comfortable.
And on top of that, it's not just the best stuff you've ever had, but it's really everyday things that you can wear and that will fit all occasions.
Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com, Twill on Instagram. So the other interesting thing here is I wonder if larger goalies, when they maybe lose a little quickness, it becomes more obvious.
Yeah, I think that's something. I think that is. Devin, he's so mechanical in that, if that's the right term. He's when he's good, he's quiet in net. He's on his angles. He's tracking pucks really well, and when he's struggling, he doesn't. And so that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, it's not like he's been absolutely god awful, but the reality is, again, it is what it is. He's struggled this year. He's 2-6-1. And one of those victories, remember, he got hurt in, so he was out in that game 21 or 2 minutes into that game. So really that victory that he got credit for, Stalock was actually in net for about 38 minutes of it, and they combined for a shutout. So really, Alex has just been the better of the two goalies so far this season. And so Alex is going to, probably play a lot more here. As I mentioned, I think on the last podcast, they don't have a ton of back-to-backs here the next 2 months, only 2 or 3. So you are going to either naturally have to give Alex more starts than he normally would get just to spot start him and not wear Dubé out. But this is definitely the year that Stalock's going to have to play a lot more. He's started the season playing a lot more just based on the fact that Devin got hurt for a couple games. And so Alex started 3 or 4 in a row. And so, this is, I think, a good thing, just seeing him in there right now and playing well.
Absolutely. Hey, you've been traveling in California and San Jose as we speak here on Thursday afternoon. Have you had to deal with any wildfires? Have you had any interesting experiences on this trip?
Yeah, no real interesting experiences, but I will say when I landed yesterday, it was absolutely apparent that the fires are a couple hours from here. The way the winds were blowing, it smelled like you were in a cookout. It was amazing, actually. And then today, driving to the rink, it's so obvious the smoke that's up in the air. So it's not something today that I really smelled, but you could see it. So that's a little scary. And then down in Anaheim, it was the weather is absolutely gorgeous. It's been an amazing trip, and it looks like it's going to be that way until we get back next Wednesday. It's a 10-day trip, odd trip too. 4 games in 10 days. They have a couple off days in LA. And geographically nonsensical. They start in Anaheim, come up to San Jose, go down to Phoenix, then back to LA, have a couple off days in LA. It is funny when you get older as a beat writer, though. This is the type of trip that months ago I'd be like looking forward to for months, like all these off days and things like that. And now you're on the trip and you're kind of like, maybe it's because we've been on the road constantly, but it's just like going into it, it's like I wasn't really looking forward to it. And then I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, God, why couldn't they put a back-to-back here?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny? I mean, when you get older, like how it is, where years ago, it's like, man, it's going to be awesome. 10 days on the West Coast. And now you're just like, God, I've been on the road constantly. Again, by the time we get back from this trip, it's going to be 13 of the first 18 games on the road. It's just absolutely just a crazy, grueling schedule for a team that in a lot of ways, for a lot of years, has been very home happy in the first month of the season.
Yeah, I tell you, I feel it. I talked with Cheryl Reeve on her show the other day. It's like when I travel these days, even if it's a short trip, even if I don't even have a drink or have any fun or even do anything on the trip, I get home. It's like I don't feel right for like another 36 hours.
Well, I don't really feel that, but the act of traveling is just a lot more strenuous than it used to be. I mean, and frankly, and with all due respect, because I love the airport, but there's other than say New York and places like that, there's maybe LA. There's no worse airport to fly out of right now than MSP. And it's going to be like this for a couple of years. Like that construction in the front to get through security. I mean, even TSA pre-check and clear can take you freaking 25, 30 minutes in security right now. It's just, it's the other day I was online just to check a bag at Delta for an 11:30 flight. And there had to be 150 people in front of me to check a bag. At the Delta Sky Priority line. It's just it's just the construction they're doing in the front right now. So it's just it's been just a bit of a pain in the first month and a half of the season. Every time you get to the airport, it's different procedures just because of the construction and the way everything is laid out. I thought this is something that was going to be done in the next 4 or 5 months. Then somebody in the TSA pre-check line the other day was telling me that no, this is going to like 2022 or something. So it's they're redoing the entire both the baggage claim area and the departure area of the airport. So which you got to do. I mean, you got to modernize and all that stuff. But man, it's just and if you are on a like 6 a.m. flight or 6:30 or 7 a.m. flight, I mean, you better get there a couple hours before the flight. It is so stressful. Just the amount of people. It's just chaos. And if you're flying with people that are not used to that or aren't used to, where to go at MSP, it is just, it's just a sea of people like you're at the State Fair at the front of MSP right now for those early morning flights.
Ugh. You're scaring me. I have a lot of travel coming up the rest of the year between Vikings and some other trips I'm taking. It's a pet peeve for me, Michael, because it's not like if a restaurant gets rushed, if like 100 people walk in to a restaurant the restaurant isn't planning on, I understand that's the difficulty. People at airports, they know exactly how many people are coming and what time they're flying. They should be able to handle it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was, it's one thing with the security stuff and the dealing with that construction, but I was pretty disappointed. I love Delta. I mean, I think everybody knows that, but I was really disappointed with the front of Delta the other day at Sky Priority that they had like 5-6 agents working with 100 people in line just at the Sky Priority area. Now I know I will say it went shockingly fast, but man, it's just again what it does is it wears you down. It just creates to a point that when you've been on the road for 13 out of 18 games, it just creates a fatigue level that just makes it not exactly the most fun existence. And I'm sure people listening to this, Russo's whining about being a freaking sports writer, but I'd love to do that type thing. I'm just saying that it's been a tough grind of a season of a start here, and the players themselves should be very, very happy that they don't have to fly commercial because they have it a tad easier than us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hey, check out Fixology Repair during your travels. They have a shop in Toledo, but of course we're going to hype the ones that they have in the Twin Cities. New office, new business, new site in St. Paul Skyway near the XL Energy Center, near the Wild offices. The one you've probably seen if you walk downtown above Crown Bank in downtown Minneapolis in the Skyway, and of course the mothership at the Mall of America, which has all kinds of cool stuff for sale, including their repair department. Fixology Repair, fixologyrepair.com.
Hi, this is John with Fixology Repair. For the better part of a decade, we've been privileged to serve you for all of your jewelry, watch, and smartphone repair needs at the Mall of America. Since Minnesotans largely hate going to the mall, we expanded 2 years ago to reach you in the Minneapolis Skyway. And now this year, we're pleased to announce we have a new location at Wells Fargo Place in the St. Paul Skyway. All 3 shops are equipped to help with your watch and cell phone repair needs on site, while all jewelry, computer, and game consoles will be completed at the Mall of America store. Please bring us your repair challenges, and don't forget to mention the Talk North podcast for a 10% discount on all of our services.
All right, unless you have something else, let's hit some Twitter questions.
Yeah, no, go for it.
From Jeff Ruland, where does Bruce coach in 2021? If not the Wild, anywhere. The man seems to be a coach down to his bones.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to want to coach. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are going to be potentially looking for coaches. Maybe San Jose here. I'm trying to think what else. Is that like what type of music was that in the background?
I got a new phone, and that was an alarm going off that I don't remember setting.
Okay. It sounded like
it's actually my Michael Russo groove music.
Yeah, I know. Trying to think. I mean, San Jose potentially, Detroit potentially, but I mean, I'm saying that there could be openings.
Right.
Toronto, which would be his dream job. Trying to think who else.
His dream job because of the city or the franchise?
Both. Dallas. Again, he's going to be 60-something years old. Whether or not those teams are going to want to go with an older coach at that point is going to be the biggest question mark. If this is his last year here in Minnesota, but really, frankly, the shame of him not getting fired at the end of last season is that there were 7 or 8 coaching jobs available, including a couple like up in Buffalo, which would have been a perfect job for him. So you have him come to the season as sort of a lame duck coach. Probably, I'm sure he didn't want to be fired, but from a personal standpoint, frankly, Jim, he would have had a lot of opportunity last summer that might not be there this summer.
Right, absolutely. From Alec, our old friend, with there being a trade last night, do you think other teams will follow suit?
I don't know. I mean, it's a minor trade. Fabry coming off a couple major knee injuries. Young 23-year-old that wasn't getting a ton of opportunity in St. Louis anymore. I think teams were scared off by his injuries. And DeLauro's, I don't know what type of player he's going to be, but that to me is like the type of easy deal that it's not huge cap implications. But yeah, I mean, it's going to start to open things up. But in this league with so many teams close to the cap, it usually impact moves come very much closer to the trade deadline.
Sure. Hey, by the way, for all of our listeners, please follow us at Talk North Pod. The next couple of months, we might have some announcements. Maybe we'll do some giveaways. We'll do some special stuff on the Twitter feed, Talk North Pod. Follow us there as well as our individual accounts. We appreciate it. From Nikolai, are the Wild a bottom 5 team this year, or do you think they play themselves into a pick around 10?
Well, it's funny because you watch a game like Anaheim the other day and you realize, one, as I've mentioned a couple times, there's some crummy teams in this conference right now. That might be crummier than the Wild. And the other thing is that when you see them play a game like that the other night, you do still realize that there's a lot of game left in a lot of these bodies, and that there's just there's some good players on the Wild that have pride, that aren't just going to not play hard. And we saw it the other night. I mean, Zuccarello is a good player. Eric Stahl, after the first period, everybody in the first period struggled, but after the first period, that is as good a game as we've seen from Eric Stahl in 2 years. He was freaking awesome the other night. He was so good in front of the net. Watch the shift that Fiala scored on, how good he was in front of the net. That pass by Zucker was in his skates. He had to almost cup his ankle to get down on one knee to score the winning goal that night. These are, and eventually, Parisi's going to start to play well. I thought Parisi again in Anaheim the other night had a really tough game from start to finish. But Mikko was really good that night. There's the problem with them is that they've got wow, what is that?
I sort of got my phone just goes off randomly. I don't know what to do about it. It's driving me crazy.
Maybe you could have Brandon come over and.
You know what? It happened to me in a Vikings press conference the other day, and I'm like the kind of person who hates it. I like death stare anybody who lets their phone interrupt a press conference, and it happened to me the other day. I was so embarrassed.
John Tortorella isn't Mike Zimmer.
Oh, so, yeah. Well, Zimmer, and
the opposite.
If Zimmer wanted to yell at me, I would have taken it because no journalist should ever let their phone go off in a press conference, and now I'm that idiot.
Why do you change from an iPhone?
Because my iPhone was from like 1932. Okay. And the options of upgrading did not include an iPhone and included an Android. And listen, I've had the phone 2 days, and actually, I like a lot of things about the phone. It's much more modern. It looks better. It's much better battery. I just don't know how to shut the damn thing off yet.
I don't like that the group messages now between me, you, and Brandon are green.
Well, and that is, not that would be a first world problem, Michael.
It's like I try to not include Gorg on group messages because it changes the whole font from blue to green.
Sure, that's the reason you don't want Gorg on your group messages.
Exactly.
Let's thank Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund, Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. And this is a great place to get the idea that you might want to check out your insurance options with Tony, considering he handles my insurance and he handles Michael's insurance, and he's been doing it for a long time now.
Hi, Talk North listeners. I wanted to let you all know about State Farm's new program called Quotes for Good. We partner with local nonprofits to raise money for great causes. For the Russo-Souhan Show, I'll be donating $16 to the Jason and Carly Zucker Give 16 campaign that benefits the University of Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital. When you call in, be sure to mention the show so that we can track the donations. You can reach us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at champlininsurance.com.
From Mitch Perzicilli, what was it like covering Jacques Lemaire, and did you have a good working relationship? Any funny Jacques stories? Of course, we used to talk about Jacques all the time, but it's been a while. Any memories you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I loved covering Jacques. I learned a ton from him. Every time I cover a coach, I feel like I learn more about the game because every coach has different verbiage. Every coach has different styles. I mean, that's everybody from any coach I've ever covered. I covered in Florida. I covered Doug McClain. I covered Dwayne Sutter. I covered Mike Keenan. I covered Terry Murray. I covered Brian Murray. I covered John Torchetti, Rick Dudley down there, Jacques Martin. And then in Florida, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody in Florida, but I covered, Jacques Lemaire, obviously Todd Richards, Mike Yo, John Torchetti, and Bruce Boudreau. And every time you have a different coach, it's different. I mean, even, Todd Richards almost feels like a blip on the radar because it was only a couple of years, but just dealing with him for a couple of years, you learn just new ways that the game is taught. And here's a star offensive defenseman, both in high school and at the University of Minnesota. And he had a different way that he looked at the game than, say, a Mike Yo. And so from Jacques' perspective, that guy has forgotten more hockey than most every coach in this league knows. He had a great way of talking. He was so funny in English that I could only imagine how funny he was in French. My favorite stories with Jacques or just sitting there and hanging out with him outside of a hotel before he's waiting for the bus as he's smoking one of those little tiny kind of like cigar type things, and just listening to him tell stories about the old days. It was awesome. Again, my favorite story was opening night. One year, it actually would have been, I think, Patrick Kane's NHL debut, so 07. The Wild won the game 1-0. It wasn't a great game. He had just had LASIK surgery from Dr. Samuelson, like a week before or something, and he opened his presser by saying, I want to have my LASIK reversed. I saw too much. And it just mean, it was just like everything, stuff like that. And then I think one of the coolest stories is that when he quote unquote retired from the Wild or resigned, after the presser, he pulled me aside and look, at the very beginning of me covering the Wild in 2005, I think he looked like, what's this Florida hockey writer coming up? What does he know anything about hockey? And so I think it took him a little while to try to figure out who I was and that I loved the sport and that maybe that I knew the sport and things like that. And years later, after the presser, he pulls me to the side of the presser and he just told me how much he respected me and how and just my work ethic and my passion for the game and knowledge of the game. And that honestly was almost in tears. It really came out of the blue because of all the coaches I've ever covered in the NHL. I would say that with Jacques and me, it was the most working relationship and not really on a personal side that I ever felt like I got to know him from that standpoint. And so that really, really meant a lot that he kind of conveyed his respect for me because I absolutely respected covering him. And, that really is the way that it is with almost every single human being that I've ever covered in the sport. I was thinking, so I'm staying at the Airport Marriott in LA in a couple days. And I haven't stayed there in years. And Dane Mizutani, who works for the Pioneer Press, was telling me how great of a hotel it was. And I was like, really? Like, I remember from years ago where it was breaking down and, and all that stuff. And he's like, no, it's modern. They've renovated and all this stuff. And I started having all these, like, recollections of me in the mid to late 90s in the bar at the Champions, just hanging out after games at, like, midnight, 1 a.m. with Brian Murray and Chuck Fletcher and talking hockey. And those were the days when you basically learn most of your stuff, Jim, from the bar after hours when you talk to the coach or the GM or the assistant GM or whatever. And that stuff doesn't exist nearly as much anymore. It just doesn't. And so it's funny. It's just kind of an old memory that I had of just me. I'll never forget it. Me hanging out in the bar at the Champions at that LAX Marriott when Brian Murray point blank told me we're getting rid of Beezer. Beezer's done here. And it turned out to be one of the bigger stories that I had in Florida.
Cool stuff. Let's thank, remember, we have a deal with Bite Squad. The promo code is Talk North, but I recommend going to bitesquad.com, seeing what the deal is in your area and what restaurants are near you. They deliver great food from great restaurants. Use the Bite Squad app. Makes everything very simple. Morning, noon, night, home, office, or elsewhere. Again, our promo code is Talk North, but check out other options at bitesquad.com. Let's see, from Jason of the North, do you think the NHL still tries to participate in the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics?
I think that the PA is definitely going to push for that. So I do think so.
You do think so? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think the PA will push for it, and I think if the NHL and the PA could, go into the collective bargaining agreement and try to figure out some stuff, I think that's going to be a big part of the negotiating process.
Interesting. All right.
Because remember, just because they push this down the line, it just means that there's no work stoppage here in a couple of years. But eventually they are going to have to rework on this or tweak some things in the CBA.
Right. From Carson, what Minnesota sports team will have more wins, Wolves or Wild? I think the Wolves are probably headed for a victory total in the high 30s. What do you think?
I would say it's going to be close.
Yeah. And from Zeke Boyett, do you think Guerin is more likely to let the season play out in its entirety with the lack of rentals on this team or sell off, trade any pieces that he can around the deadline?
Yeah, I think probably the former there. I really do. Really, the only rental that I can think of theoretically would be Koivu. And Koivu's got a full no move. So if he doesn't want to go somewhere else, he doesn't have to go somewhere else. But other than that, unless Patterson has 2 years left on his deal. I guess theoretically Brad Hunt. Is that it? I think that's it. Trying to just go through my head here. I think that's it in terms of what would be the so-called definition of a NHL rental at the trade deadline. So, I think that one thing that where Paul Fenton really erred last year is that you forget that a lot of times if you want to make a quote unquote hockey trade, the best time to do that is over the summer because you're theoretically dealing with 30 teams rather than 16 playoff teams. And that automatically means that your value might go up for a bunch of players on your team because you could create a bit of a bidding war, and he really didn't do that. So, I do think it makes much more sense if you're going to start selling off assets, to wait closer to the summertime around the draft. And remember, playoff teams usually want guys in the last year of their deal. So I think Zeke's question probably has to do with that one.
Yeah. From Ben, with such a road-heavy schedule early, do you think the Wild and its players put too much pressure on themselves early, which has helped contribute to so many players having slow starts? Feels like a different year. Players give themselves more time to settle in before frustration mounts.
Well, definitely. I mean, if you're struggling right off the hop, it just frustration mounts, and when you're on the road mostly, it just makes it much more difficult to really find yourself. And so, I think there's something to that. And it's funny because I look at the second half schedule and there's a 7-week stretch from between January to like mid-February. The Wild are like on the road like once or twice for one-off games in Calgary and I think a home away back-to-back, if I remember, against in Chicago potentially. So they just don't have a lot of road games. But the problem is by then is your season over. Theoretically, is your season over. And so they've got to figure out a way here. That's why some of these losses really have stung. That not getting the extra point in St. Louis at the home game the other day with the really ridiculously officiated game the other night by Graham Skilliter. The blown game in Dallas. And then what it does is then when you play well in St. Louis the next night and don't get the win, it makes for a devastating feeling coming home to that St. Louis game. Just because you just blew the game the night before. So, they've got a lot of work to do to get a lot of the minds on this team playing well. It just is compounded for guys like Donato and Cunnin and Greenway. These guys aren't scoring. We're starting to see much better play right now from Zuccarello, from Fiala, from Stahl. And so, but it takes a while once you start off. I mean, look at the minuses on this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. From Patrick John, what is the player food situation like before and after games? Do they get lavish meals catered in after a game?
Yeah. So the way it works is at home, they obviously they have a chef. Both at their practice facility, they have a chef that cooks some food, breakfast and after practice snacks and things like that. And when they're at home, same thing. After a game, they have essentially a buffet in their locker room that gets their nutrition back up. On the road, it's sort of the same thing. They get back to the hotel after a morning skate, and they immediately have a catered lunch. And then there's before the game, there are snacks and things like that. But then after the game, what they do is they have a catering service in every town that essentially gives them food at the rink that they could take to the plane. They do have food, I believe, on the plane. Again, for a while they were not doing that. They just had it, the catered food after a game in the locker room, and essentially, and then they have a certain type of companies that they deal with that know exactly the type of nutrition that they want. They've gotten rid of, back in the old days, it used to be just pizza and meat sticks and stuff. And,
it's amazing. That is one of the biggest changes in sports in our era. It used to be guys just pizza, and they would just go out and eat crap for lunch or crap for dinner, and they drink 18 beers every night. And the modern athlete wants to delve into nutrition, and the modern organization is smart enough to understand how important that is.
Yeah, and a lot of players now have their own nutrition too, their own diets. I mean, a lot of these guys are. Are in lactose-free diets, gluten-free diets. Jason Zucker's one of them. Zach Parise is another, I believe. Where so that's the other thing, is that they do have to cater specifically to certain players and their type of diets. Where a guy like Ryan Suter's willing to, he kind of scoffs, or at least he used to scoff at this type of stuff.
John also asked if you get to partake, and of course the answer is no.
No. Once in a while, I'll grab a piece of gum from the locker room. Sometimes, like earlier this year, we were in Toronto and the locker room was cleared out. We were waiting for Jerry Mayhew, I think, because he was doing TV, and I was in the locker room and I grabbed a bottled water off the locker room table and things like that. That's about all I would ever do.
From Nick T, what are your thoughts on Donato's overall game? Is the pressure to perform getting to him?
Yeah, I mean, it's struggling. I remember when they traded for him in New York and we interviewed Paul Fenton, and Fenton was telling us that nobody in the NHL has seen Ryan Donato more than me, because he had Jimmy Vesey on Harvard. And so he had seen Ryan Donato play a lot of hockey, both in his youth level, because he's from that area, Paul Fenton, and then minor league level, but also college level. And he really believed in him. But right now, man, this is it's crazy. The slump he's in, dating back to last year too. If you remember his last 7 or 8 games of last year, he only had an assist after being a point-a-game player his first 15 games. So he just doesn't look like the same player. He doesn't get a lot of shots at all anymore. Gets knocked off pucks a lot, falls a lot, and it's just it's been hard to watch. And I know that Bruce is not showing a lot of faith in him either. He's playing him on the fourth line. The other night in Anaheim, we saw that when Bruce cut the bench to pretty much 10 or 11 forwards, Donato and Fiala were the two odd guys out. So, clearly defensively, in a 1-goal game in the third period, despite Fiala's goal, Bruce showed very little faith in him, and same thing with Ryan Donato.
We'll be back at Tin Shed on November 13th and November 20th. Starting time, 7 o'clock. We usually make those 1-hour shows. Our studio shows or remote shows tend to be a little bit shorter, so sometimes we save good topics for the longer shows. So if we didn't read your Twitter question, send it out to us on those show days. We'll try to get to them then as well. 2 more Twitter questions, then we'll wrap up. Remember, go to tinshedmn.com. You'll get coupons. You'll find out what their deals, their happy hours, their Kids Eat Free program is. And I think they have a 2-for-1 pizza deal. Just go to Tin Shed MN. You'll see information about our shows and about all their deals. And we appreciate them hosting shows. 2 more Twitter questions. Michael will get back to the California sunshine. From Eric Marvel, Parise looks very anguished at the moment. How much of that has to do with the trade rumors? How much is due to the state of the team not being anywhere close to ready for a cup run?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's that. I think it is, the off-season stuff. I think it's his own play. And other factors as well. So I don't disagree with you. I think he's wearing it on his face right now. He's struggling. And this is a guy that led them in scoring last year, not just goals, but points. So I still think he figures a way coming out of it. A lot, just like any player, it's confidence with him. He just, the biggest concern with him is shot volume. Very little right now. Not a lot of great chances. He's not the same threat that he's always been on the power play at all. And he doesn't seem to be skating great. He's having a lot of trouble catching pucks. That's the one thing I've noticed all year long. I don't know if it's his sticks or what. He can't catch pucks. There were 2 scanned forechecks the other night would have been the first period where just behind the net, just a pass. Again, it might be the Anaheim ice or what. But passes just behind the net, just hop right over his stick and then boom, out. And that's the end of that forecheck. And so, I think that, look, Zach's a heck of a proud guy, a good player. I still think that he'll figure out a way to get out of it. But you're right. I don't think he's the happiest camper right now, just gauging the way that he looks on the ice and all that stuff.
Last question of this show. Thanks to everyone who listens. Follow us at Talk North Pod. Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. From Nick Bremer, on the last pod you mentioned Sokolov is not really a prospect at this point. Care to elaborate why, given he was second in points for a rookie with 30 last year?
Yeah, because he's not. He can't skate. He's not in the greatest shape. He plays fourth line there. He's not. So It's just what I see. I mean, the guy was sent to Allen last week because he can't get in the lineup. And he didn't play in the AHL playoffs, and he has not played really at all this year in the regular season. That's not a prospect. So
yeah, pretty simple. Hey, good stuff from Michael. Thanks for taking the time, Michael. We'll see you November 13th at Tin Shed. And thanks to everyone who listens and everyone sponsors this program.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
Security threats are everywhere. But with Xfinity XFi, you're notified of threats to your in-home Wi-Fi network, so all your connected devices are protected. That's simple, easy, awesome. Switch to Xfinity today and get a great offer. You'll get fast speeds and the best in-home Wi-Fi experience with Xfinity XFi. Plus, ask about enhanced security for safer browsing and more. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit an Xfinity store to switch today. Restrictions apply.